Imagine being on the team of people who developed the atomic bomb, knowing that you had developed the most powerful weapon in the world, something that had the potential to cause massive destruction. Andrei Sakharov was such a person. He was one of the leading scientists in Russia who gave to the Soviets the atomic bomb. Before he passed away, Sakharov made this statement: "I always thought that the most powerful weapon in the world was the bomb. I've changed my mind. The most powerful weapon in the world is not the bomb. The most powerful weapon in the world is the truth." My name is Jonathan De Beer, and I work for an apologetics organization called Ratio Christi. This is a Latin name meaning the reason for Christ. And we work with university and high school students to encourage and strengthen their faith in Christ by helping them understand why they believe in Christianity. If you want more information on who we are, you can check out our website at ratiochristi.co.za. You'll also find some great resources there. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can find excellent talks and interviews on a number of different topics. In 2016, the word of the year was post-truth. And it basically means that emotion and personal belief are more influential in shaping public opinion than objective facts. And this is definitely the case on social media. I mean, just read through a Twitter feed and you will see all the emotion being shouted out, but not many stop to look at the objective facts. And if you dare disagree with someone, it's equated to hate speech. Truth seems to have taken a back seat. And this brings us to an important question. What is truth? This is a question people have been asking for a really long time. In fact, there's this fascinating exchange between Jesus and Pilate, the Roman governor. And Pilate says to Jesus, "Don't you know I have the power to release you?" But Jesus looked at this Roman governor and said, "I came to be a witness to the truth. Everyone who is on the side of truth listens to me." And in that moment, he looked at Jesus and asks, "What is truth?" Understanding what truth is vital to telling people about the gospel. So how can we know truth? A little while ago, I took a course with Dr. Richard Howe through Southern Evangelical Seminary on relativism. It was an excellent course, and in it, Dr. Howe helps to answer this question by pointing out that there is a difference between understanding what truth is, a theory, and how we can tell if something is true, a test. And let me unpack that a bit. Take the statement, "I live in South Africa." Whatever I say about this statement when I say it is true is my theory of truth. How you know whether I do in fact live in South Africa is the test for truth. So a theory of truth is how you would define the terms true and truth when saying that a statement is true. And a test for truth is how you would discover whether a statement is true, regardless of your understanding of truth. It's the difference between defining truth and discovering truth. And there are various different theories that have been put forward over the years. And probably the most well-known ones are correspondence, coherence, functional, and pragmatic. Let's run through them quickly, beginning with the correspondence theory, which, as we will discover, is actually foundational for all the other theories. So what is the correspondence theory of truth? Well, it says that a statement is true when it corresponds to reality. So take the statement, "It is raining." It would be a true statement if it is in fact raining in reality, and it would be false if it was not raining in reality. Now, some of you may be going, "Wow, you have the amazing ability to point out the obvious." And that's exactly the point. It seems so obvious. But in a post-truth society, people are more driven to discover the truth by feelings and emotions, and are less interested in whether their ideas actually correspond to reality. The correspondence theory of truth is basically saying that if you have a belief over here, and over here you have reality, truth is when your belief matches with reality. Think for a moment how you base your entire life down to the daily decisions you make on what you think is true. Let me give you an example. Picture two students from the same class in the same school, and they're both writing the same exam on the same day. The first student believes that the exam is at 9 in the morning, while the second student believes that the exam is at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Each student is utterly convinced that their belief is correct. They are so convinced that their belief is correct that they base their day around that belief. So the first student who believes the exam is at 9 o'clock will get up early, go over her notes, eat breakfast, and get to school at 8:30 ready to write the exam. However, the second student's day will look a little different because he believes he's only writing the exam at 1 in the afternoon. So he has a lot more time. So he sleeps in, goes over his notes, has something to eat, and then gets to school at 12:30. Now, when the first student gets to school and goes to the hall where the exam is taking place, she finds the lights are on, her classmates are there, the teacher's there waiting with the exam. She takes her seat and writes the exam. But when the second student gets to school, he gets this sinking feeling when he sees the parking lot is empty. He makes his way to the hall only to discover that the lights are off and there's not a soul in sight. And he realizes he got the time wrong, and so he missed the exam. Both students believed that the exam was at a certain time, and both students based their day on that belief. The two students' beliefs couldn't both be right. So which one's belief matched reality? The one who wrote the exam. And no matter how strong the second student's feelings were that the exam was at 1 o'clock, or no matter how many followers he had on Twitter or Instagram, it wouldn't have changed the truth of the actual time. The next theory we'll look at is the coherence theory of truth. And many who hold to the coherence theory of truth do not believe that it is possible to know if the beliefs or ideas in our minds match with reality. They don't seem to think we can know reality and believe that all we can know is what is in our minds. So the coherence theory says that a belief is true when the beliefs or ideas in our minds are consistent with each other. Since we cannot know if our ideas match with reality, so the theory goes, we can only see if our various thoughts and beliefs cohere with each other. While we should expect truth claims not to contradict one another, there is a serious problem with the coherence theory of truth. If truth was merely just coherent with another collection of beliefs or ideas, then by this theory, even a fairy tale could be true. But the reason we know that a fairy tale is just a fairy tale is because it does not match up with reality. And this brings us to the third theory of truth, the functional theory. This theory suggests that a belief or statement is true when it fulfills its intended purpose. Imagine you were playing soccer in your garden with your children and someone came up to you and said, "You know that you are playing with a false soccer ball, right?" The first thing you would probably say is, "What are you doing in my garden?" But the second is that you wouldn't disagree with them. It's not like you'd pick up the soccer ball and defend the truth of it. I think you would just be confused. What does that even mean, a false soccer ball? How could it possibly be false? It's round and you can kick it. It just is a soccer ball. Perhaps when we talk about the truth of Christianity to people, some have this functional view of religion. Some people see religion in the same sort of way they see people playing different kinds of sport. Some prefer playing cricket, others prefer playing rugby. But it wouldn't make sense to go up to someone who's playing cricket or rugby and saying, "You know you're playing a false sport." And when we come along and say Christianity is true, people might not understand what we are saying because they believe that religion just fulfills a certain purpose in your life. So just like some people prefer to play cricket or rugby, some prefer Christianity to Buddhism. If this is how people think about religion, we need to back up and explain that when we say Christianity is true, we are saying that Christianity is making claims about reality that either match up or not. There either is or isn't a God. Jesus either did or didn't rise from the dead. He either is or isn't the only way to the Father. Christianity is not a question of preference or fulfilling a purpose in your life. It's a question of truth. The last theory of truth we'll look at is the Pragmatic Theory. This theory claims that a statement is true inasmuch as it works or is practical. And like the Coherence Theory, it denies that our minds have access to reality. All we have is ideas and beliefs, and the best we can do is to say that something is true insofar as it works. So what is true is what I believe works for me, or what is useful for me to believe. If Christianity works for you, then that's cool, you can believe that. But if Buddhism works for you, then that's also cool. You just pick whatever belief works for you. This theory of truth is what lies behind this common statement which you've probably heard. That's just true for you, but not true for me. Or that's just your truth. The problem with this view is, what do you do when something cannot be just true for me? If I went to the bank and asked to withdraw 100,000 Rand, and the teller turns around and says, "Sorry sir, you only have 100 Rand in your account." How do you think the teller might respond if I said to her, "That's just your truth, please give me the 100,000 Rand"? They would probably call security. So here we have four major theories of truth: correspondence, coherence, functional, and pragmatic. But as you work through the coherence, functional, and pragmatic views, you will see they are limited. They are limited because they all depend upon the correspondence view of truth. And here's how. People who hold to the coherence, functional, and pragmatic views believe that their theory of truth is how truth works in the world. But that is just the same as saying that their view corresponds with reality. So in explaining their views, they already assume the correspondence theory, and this just shows their dependence on the correspondence view of truth. I want us just to briefly touch on the tests for truth. There are as many different tests for truth as there are different kinds of things you can test for. Reality is complex and can be mathematical, physical, biological, historical, philosophical, to name a few. And because of these different aspects of reality, there are different ways to test for truth. There is no mathematical formula, for example, to test that a historical statement is true. If we wanted to find out whether Julius Caesar was assassinated or not, you wouldn't whip out your calculator and do a quick sum to see if that claim was true. A historical claim is a different aspect of reality to a mathematical claim. To find out whether Julius Caesar was assassinated, we need a test that is specific to the historical aspect of reality in order to discover whether it is true. And there are two mistakes that people often make when it comes to testing truth. The first mistake is to take a test for one aspect of reality and improperly use it for another aspect, like doing a sum on your calculator to find out if Julius Caesar was assassinated. The second, much bigger mistake is to take a test for one aspect of reality and improperly use it for reality as a whole. For example, some say that only the scientific method can be used to discover what is true for reality as a whole. The problem with this is that there are things we know to be true that cannot be tested by the scientific method. Why does any of this matter? Because truth matters. If Andrei Sakharov is right and truth is the most powerful weapon in the world, then knowing the truth is vital. Truth connects you with reality and the God who created reality. Truth is not what we prefer or what works for us. Truth is what accurately matches reality. And when we examine the claims of Christianity, we will discover they correspond with reality.